Welcome back to the State of Survival Dimension. I want to talk about the new official trailer, Badlands, for DayZ that they did. And I don't want to necessarily focus on what they're showcasing. I'm kind of more interested in taking a step back and looking at DayZ in the overall picture, right? Because DayZ for the longest time has been about giving so many updates every year. And we got our first DLC, I think it was back in 2019 with Livonia. And then it was well over like 3 to 4 years before we got Frostline. And now, the very next year, we're getting the Badlands possible DLC. What do you think is going on with DayZ right now?
There's never really seemed to be a lot of extra content coming from DayZ. Yes, you get the updates, like you said, and there's a few DLCs, but nothing that I know of that's happened like this quickly and just bam, 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 like we're getting right now. And it does make you wonder if there's something coming later on or if we're just trying to keep DayZ as fresh as possible. And kind of like what's the merits of both of those things? Are we going to see something bigger in the future that's not just a DLC map, or are we just trying to keep this fan base happy and keep them coming back and playing more and trying to grab more fans elsewhere and pull them into the DayZ community?
I think they do want to keep the fan base and expand upon it. They do want to keep the fan base more entertained, happier. I think this might be a way for the DayZ team overall to find an excuse to be able to do something really big, like with Shakal. I don't think they would have had, in my opinion, as a DayZ modder, the approval to overhaul the UI as much as they did, to add in all of the elements of cooling, heating, all that kind of stuff in a regular update. I think that would have been a hey, this is not something that we want to work on. It doesn't really benefit us at all. But they're like, wait, console players want a new map. They've been begging for a new map. And they're like, cool, let's do it. They found, the Tanoa jungle map, and then they converted that over into Frostline. And boom, they were able to implement those cool features for everyone. But it only happened because Frostline was being pitched as a DLC.
It's kind of an interesting point because we did get a few changes that were relatively major when we got Frostline. It's almost like some of these DLCs are, yes, an excuse to change certain core things, but also kind of a way of testing some of those features that might be changed instead of just throwing them into the base game and the vanilla and the regular maps. Also, you want to bring Frostline up. I feel like Frostline and maybe Badlands will be too are vastly different from the other DayZ maps I've played in DLCs. Yes, you have some cold maps and things like that, but those all feel very much similar to just base DayZ. Whereas Frostline and Sakal feels completely different to me than anything else I had ever played in DayZ before that. And I obviously can't play Badlands yet. It's not out, so I don't know that Badlands will be the same thing, but it seems like it's going to go in that direction.
I think honestly, the Shakal release and all that ended up kind of making, like you said, paving the way for other things. But also, I wonder if they've learned from their mistakes with Shakal. There were definitely some blunders, I would have to say, that we saw early on that they had to fix or rectify. Because you gotta remember, DayZ overall was meant to be a survival approach with a heavy PvP, if not more PvP than survival. And that's why we always got the temperate map of Shanaris and we got Livonia, right? And both those maps are very temperate. They're not really hard. It may rain in Shanaris way too much and not rain enough in Livonia, but you never really like had to face harsh conditions. And for them to announce Badlands like only like 8 months after we got the Shakal DLC, I kind of am interested in how they're going to implement a desert map, how they're going to do that. Is it going to be just 100% reversal of what you college? You have to stay out of the sun. You have to go into shade. Maybe you need to, get some water, that kind of stuff. But like, I'm just interested in how they're going to approach it because Shakal also has a little bit of its own, like, I don't know, kind of treasure hunt. I'm going to call it a story, a treasure hunt. You find the briefcase. You find the briefcase. You open the briefcase. You get a key card, and then you have to find the bunker. And that's kind of the little treasure hunt that goes on. I really hope they don't make this map as empty as Shakal was off the main area. If they're going to have this be a desert map, it would be very easy for them to be all like, oh, it's just endless dunes until you hit debug. But I hope that they don't do that.
I think they're going to be definitely setting themselves back if they just go the route of an almost empty desert, and just these vast amounts of just empty spaces to travel. Especially if we get like sun conditions and heat conditions. You know, I mentioned earlier that the music on the trailer reminded me of Dune, but when you were talking about heat and what effects the desert is going to have on your character, it made me think of Dune as well, where you got to find shade. You can't be out in the sun for too long because you'll get sun sickness or you'll get heat sickness or whatever they call it. I wonder if they'll do that with this map, and you'll see that instead of having cold and frostbite and freezing, you're going to have this sun issue. If that's the case, those vast just open areas of desert are going to be very dangerous if they're there, and you're going to have to find ways to keep yourself cool and protect yourself in those places, or you're just going to have to travel at night all the time, and you're going to spend most of this map just night traveling to keep yourself safe from the sun.
I can definitely see that, but I think a lot of people, if Daisy does the desert right, are going to be just as frustrated at night as they are during day. Because at night, the dunes and everything else in the desert drop dramatically, like dead freezing. And I could just see people being like, "Oh, are we playing Shakal at night now?" But no, that's just the reality of it. I kind of think, just taking a step back at Daisy in a big picture, I think Daisy is finding ways to extend the content for people who love the game without kind of giving up on it. I think the team has grown. We've seen so many people be added to the announce that to the public, and I think Daisy is nowhere near going to go away. I just think these DLCs are ways for them to re-incentivize the public, get more things going. People can make fun of Daisy or trash Daisy about introducing another DLC after another DLC was just done. And I know it was 6 months to some people may feel like a large time, but it's not in the terms of how long or how far along this looks. It looks like this has been worked on probably as soon as they stopped doing Shakal, as far as I am concerned. This is Daisy showing, hey guys, we're not done, and we're going to keep supporting this game, giving you guys free updates along with paid updates, and you guys are going to keep enjoying it and playing it. And they're going to be making console players once again feel very loved, because console players want new maps. They love Shakal. Actually, most console players absolutely love Shakal. They're really happy to have another map. So I can see them being very, very happy about this new map being made.
If a game is ongoing and it is being currently developed and there's time being put into it and there is hopes for a future for it, that game company, that game development company doesn't just say, okay, we're going to work on this one DLC. We're not going to touch anything else. We're not going to plan anything else. We're not going to do anything else until this is done. They might focus on that, but that doesn't mean that they're not working on something else. That doesn't mean that they don't have a team working on Badlands already. And that doesn't mean that the second Sakal is done, they don't move to Badlands and start working on it. Like, they're going to have a plan. They're going to be ready to do something else. You know, it's not a matter of let's finish this DLC and then we're going to sit back for 6 months and not do anything. That's not how any business works, period. So as long as they're not rushing this, and as long as they're putting the effort and the time that it needs into it, and they're not going to give us some piece of garbage product like other game developers do sometimes, I don't see anything wrong with another DLC coming out this soon after Sakal.
I think you really hit the nail on the head here when we're talking about like DLCs and that kind of stuff. Now, they are very loyal to their consumer base, I will have to say. BI is very good about that. You look at Arma, Arma 2, Arma 3, Arma Reforger. They've always supported the communities in server information, rules, and all that kind of stuff, modding tools, and supporting the modders, giving out clear direction in which they're going to be going. And they even made it entirely new engine for themselves to keep making these games and to allow modders. Like when they first made the new engine, they thought of modders right away, versus like Arma 2, they weren't really thinking of modders right away. And I feel like BI, the people who help own DayZ, are really going towards we're always trying to be there for our community while we're still trying to make money. And I think that's one of the reasons why they said this DLC is going to be about 25 or less, because I think they heard some of the people talking about that they didn't want to pay that much for the last map on Frostline. But yeah,
I like it. It is exciting to see. It'll give a little bit of a fresh kind of direction for DayZ players that may be frustrated with what DayZ already is. And I don't mean because DayZ's bad, but I just mean like if you're playing DayZ all the time, you might be hungering for something new and something different. And maybe Sakal wasn't your thing. Maybe the ice and the frozen tundra wasn't your deal. Maybe this will scratch that itch of change that you need.
thank you very much for watching our little take upon the DayZ Badlands and just an overall view of where DayZ is going. Doesn't mean we're right, folks. Doesn't mean that we know what we're talking about, but it was kind of fun to sit back with Dimension and really tackle this. I have been Dumpgra. Join me in thanking Dimension 119 and Red Falcon for always being here and keeping the show running. Ta-ta for now.
See you in another dimension.